Hello and welcome to City Beat. We are your central source of news and information for the city of Rocky Mount. And I'm your host, Tamika Keenan Norman. And today's show is all about the newest members of our leadership team here in Rocky Mount. And joining me today, we have both Lori Cairo, our Chief Internal Auditor.
Hello.
And Will Deaton, Director of Development Services. Hi. Hello to both of you, and welcome for the first time to City Beat.
Right.
Yeah, we finally got you on the show.
All right.
So thank you for being here today. Welcome to Rocky Mount as well. And you all are relatively new. I wanted you both together because you started, I think, within 2 weeks of each other. I think you were first.
I was.
Lori, right? November 5th.
Uh-huh.
Will, November 19th.
That's correct.
Yeah, so tell us about yourselves. We'll start with you, Lori, but tell us where you're from, where you went to school, all that good stuff.
I'm an Air Force brat. I grew up all over the world. Born in Alabama and lived across the states, went to high school in Japan, and came back to the States for college, ended up in Florida, and actually got 3 degrees from the Florida Atlantic University, degree in marketing, accounting, and then master's in accounting information systems. And I ended up staying in Florida for the next 25 years or so. And I ended up in Rocky Mount. It was just a point in my career. I had never worked for local government, and this opportunity came up, and it was a chance to kind of blend my deep internal audit experience, with a city that was trying to build an internal audit function, and learn something new for me and with local government. So
all right.
That's what brought me here.
Do you know any Japanese?
No, I learned Spanish while I was over in Japan.
Oh, okay. Well, that was interesting.
I knew I was coming back to the States, but yeah, I missed opportunity.
Okay. What about you, Will?
Yeah, actually, I was born in Arlington, Virginia. Lived there for a while, went to high school in Raleigh, North Carolina, and then worked my way to Greenville to East Carolina and stumbled upon the planning program and graduated with a degree in urban and regional planning. While in school, I had opportunities to do some things and ended up having some internships. I had federal government internships in transportation planning. And then while my senior year was wrapping up, I had an opportunity to work down the road in Wilson as an intern and just found that to me, the local government side of it was a little bit more rewarding, and so that's kind of where I've been in local government ever since.
Now, how do you stumble upon a program, Will?
You just kind of, it's not something you hear about all the time, like planning. You hear about business and marketing and communications and all these, and it's just something that there's only a few schools in North Carolina that offer it. They had the opportunity. I went to some information classes and just something that piqued my interest. And just kind of kept that going, and that's where we are now.
Okay, so how long have you been in local government?
Local government since early 2005.
Okay.
So I've been doing this for going on about 14, 15 years now.
Wow.
In local government planning. And that's been in North Carolina and in South Carolina. I spent some time down there as well, but enjoy being in North Carolina. My family's from North Carolina. My wife's family's from North Carolina, and we like where we are.
All right. Now, Lori, you touched briefly on some of the things that you had done or, some of your other experiences, but do you want to talk a little bit more about some of your previous experiences?
Yeah, I'm not your traditional auditor. My first degree was in marketing. I went into sales, industrial products, and then I actually owned and operated 3 restaurants. And that's what took me back to school for my accounting degree, to bring the accounting function internally within our businesses. And then I got interested in getting my master's in accounting information systems, and that was a specialty area, kind of new in the auditing field, and I got recruited by Deloitte, and so I left the husband running the businesses, the restaurants, and I went into public accounting and auditing. I've been doing that for the last 25 years. It's an area I'm passionate about, and I've worked for many different industries, many different organizations. My last 2 companies, I was brought in to transition their internal audit function into a much more risk-based approach. And I think that's what I hope to bring to the city of Rocky Mount.
Okay. So, Will, how do you think your previous roles will help you in this position?
Yeah, I think I've been fortunate enough to take advantage of some opportunities here and there, and I've worked in really small communities and even larger communities, and found Rocky Mount to be a very good balance of sort of where you want to be. So you get too small, there may not be enough going on. You get too large, and you're not actually having a large impact. So the idea to be able to get out and focus in some of those areas, because they're also different. You have a different playbook for each community, and to sort of bring it back to almost near where I started and where I've learned those items in the past. So it's a fantastic opportunity to do that.
And your department is so varied. I mean, you've got so many services that
Right.
Development Services offers. But how do you feel like your department promotes that growth and development of Rocky Mount?
We're kind of essentially everything you see in our physical environment has interacted with our department in some way. So we have the permits, and we do inspections, and we also have that regulatory role, but we're also a resource too. So people can come and ask questions, and how can I do this, and how can I get started, and what's the process here? Because every place I've been and wherever those developers come from, every process to them is different. So we touch everything, and our goal is just to have, you're competing again in this economy with everyone around you. So the idea is to have sort of the most efficient and best practices that you can have, but everything essentially cycles through Development Services at some point from start to finish. So you get a permit, you have a consultation, it gets through the whole development review process. Our inspectors go out, our zoners go out, and you get to finalize, and you get certificates of occupancy when things are finalized. And so everything you see outside, where the landscaping goes, where the parking goes, how tall the building can be, setbacks, we kind of touch it all.
All right. You do. You
Yeah.
actually do. Yeah. Now, Lori, tell me about your role as Chief Internal Auditor.
So I was brought in to implement a risk-based internal audit function, and really where that starts is by building a comprehensive citywide risk assessment. From that risk assessment, you actually start to build what you call an audit universe. Here are all the auditable entities within the city, potential areas for us to go and review. And once you've got that universe defined, you apply risk assessment again so that you can prioritize what are the areas of highest risk or highest change within the organization, and then based on limited resources with my team, what are the areas we need to focus on. So once we have the visibility to that and the risk ranking, we can put together our proposal for a 1 year or a 3-year audit plan, and hopefully let that kind of guide us over the next couple years. These are the areas we need to audit first, and these are the reasons why. So that's what I've been focused on building. Once I get all of that in place, I'm also simultaneously working on implementing our methodology, all of our tools and techniques, our work papers and reporting format, and all the different various things we need. And I also just launched a hotline citywide, and so spending time trying to understand, where the needs are for the organization. So internal audit is comprehensive, kind of touches on everything and everywhere, and it's an exciting time to be able to build it from scratch and come up with, where the greatest value will be for the city.
Okay. And I have to say, our new members, you all hit the ground running. You didn't have a honeymoon stage, okay?
No.
You hit the ground running. And Will, I'm going to start with you, because before you came, we were talking about this one-stop shop that our city manager wanted to implement.
Right.
And so you're really now into that. Tell me where you are in the process and what this one-stop shop is all about.
Yeah, we've done a lot of stuff, sort of, you say back of house operation type. So we've got a lot of paper copies that we used to do, and things just haven't changed or progressed like they probably should have compared to other locations. So the idea is we sort of mapped out all our processes to figure out where is there a gap, and where is there something where we're physically handing something over, or we're sending someone to another building or another department, and especially here a different floor or different area that starts to cause a little bit of confusion. And in this day and age, everybody kind of wants it as easy as possible and utilize that technology. So we've pinpointed some areas that we can address. So we're trying to utilize the technology to our full advantage. And then later on, we're just getting in the stages of sort of operational enhancements. And our department is sort of all over the place. We've in separate areas, and development services is sort of the one stop. Like I said earlier, everything comes through it, but we also have to send things out to outside agencies, outside departments. But we're looking to sort of, organizationally group ourselves together, so we're not sending people from planning to zoning and back and forth and back and forth. So the idea that we're looking at some operational enhancements, functional improvements, but it won't just be sort of we're here and that's it. It's going to be, we're going to get us to a point where we should have been, and then continual improvement moving forward.
Okay, so more technology, more efficiency
Absolutely.
as well. Now, where are you all going to be located?
Hopefully we're going to end up on the first floor where customer service vacated that location. So getting it so when people come in, it's first floor, they see it, it's wide open. We're here, we're the one stop. And instead of having to go upstairs and you're looking around, do I go to inspections, and then I need to visit planning, I need to talk to engineering as well. So the idea is to get us all on the first floor, make it a little bit easier for the public to come and do that.
Okay. And Lori, I know that council recently approved an internal audit committee that you'll of course be involved with, but what's the role of that committee?
So the audit committee was approved, and their real role is governance and oversight, predominantly over the integrity of the city's financial reporting, but also over monitoring the external auditors and the internal audit department. So my reporting responsibilities has realigned, and now I would report directly to the mayor. The audit committee will be comprised of council members at this point, and we're working on our charters, evaluating the charters, and trying to establish roles and responsibilities and what we need to do moving forward.
Okay. And I'll say congratulations to you, Will, in a sense, because when you came on board, you had another division added as well, Community Code, which previously reported to Public Works, right? So why does that move make sense?
It really makes sense because typically that's where that function is housed in development services, because there's so much interaction. So you have the one-stop shop and you have the interaction with planning and inspections and development, but what happens after development, or when development sort of gets vacated and abandoned, you have, who's following up on the high grass and the nuisances and everything else in the neighborhood. So it's a lot of their compliance efforts necessitate coming and getting a permit or following the Land Development Code, our LDC. So we work kind of closely together, but having it being separate in the past made it a little more cumbersome to sort of get parties together. So it makes a whole lot of sense at this point.
Okay. And you recently talked to council too about demolition by neglect, also expanding commercial code enforcement.
Right.
So what are you working on regarding those things?
Yeah, we're fortunate. We're one of the communities. We do have a demolition by neglect ordinance, and I think that may have slipped in the past a little bit. But presenting that to council and saying we do have a tool that we can use if you'd like to use that, but here's some ideas to make it a little bit better, because it was adopted, I think, in 2009. So we may need to sort of upgrade and update that a little bit. And now that we have this other division, code enforcement, community code, and sort of work them with inspections also. But essentially, there's been a focus in the downtown area, Main Street, and sort of getting that back in shape. And so that's the idea. We have some things in place. Is that the right tool that we need to use right now, or what can we do to sort of make that better for everyone?
Okay. So have you all had a chance to really explore Rocky Mount any? What's some aspects you've really enjoyed about the city of Rocky Mount?
I have found it interesting to see the downtown, some of the development, the really cool places at the mill. So yeah, I think it's a wonderful area.
Yeah, I've had fortunate enough in my role in development services to be able to go see the mills as they were working on some units and some office space, and that whole area just continues to sort of blossom around it. And then the activity and the draw, you've got people interested from all over looking at the area, and it's fascinating that you can have that, and it's a safe structure. It's a historic landmark, and we've kept it, which is rare. A lot of communities will just kind of clean it up and you don't know where to go from there, but these are things that you can't rebuild and you can't recreate. So it's pretty fun to be around here at this time.
Yeah. Well, you all have accomplished a lot. We welcome you here to the city. What would be your words of advice for students out there, maybe those in East Carolina or other areas, who want to pursue and do some of the things that you all have done in local government? What would be your words to them?
I would say a career in internal audit is a fascinating adventure. I think there's always new things coming up. You're in a role where you're plugged into the things that are most important to the organization. You're helping to be oversight and help to bring in independent perspective. And if you're somebody who likes challenge and change, perfect place for you.
Okay. Will.
Yeah, actually, planning is fun and it can be very rewarding. And at least in my level, it's more the local government level. It's hard work, so you got to be flexible, adaptable, and like I said, things are changing, communities change. A lot of interest in downtowns now, there's a lot more public interest in local government too. So you got to be able to sort of flexibly meet the demands, and you also, we're kind of the bad guys sometimes too. We have to regulate, but it's all for the betterment of Rocky Mount health, safety, and general welfare. So my idea was just get out there, figure out what area you want to be in, and then just kind of just see where it goes, and if there are opportunities out there, take advantage of them.
Well, thank you so much, Will and Lori, as well, for joining us on the show today. Congratulations on your new positions
Thank
and
you.
welcome to
Thank you
Rocky
so much.
Mount. Yeah. Thank you for tuning in as well. Coming up in just a moment, we're going to speak with our new Parks and Recreation Director, Mr. Elton Daniels. You're watching City Beat. We'll be right back.
Bye, Janet. It's nice seeing you again. You look good, girl. Just let me know what I can do to help.
Well, to help me, she'd have to help every day. Every hour, every ouch, every time my wife calls for help. I mean, maybe she could help me make her lunch. But the crust, all the crust has to be cut off the corners. She could help me run to the doctor for the 5th time this week. Help me with the specialist and the second opinions and the painful paperwork about paperwork. Help me deal with how hard it is seeing my wife's name on so much paperwork. But this is on me. I'm the only one who can do this, like this, for her. Besides,
Take care.
we will. Janet doesn't like her cooking anyway.
Find support for your strength. Visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community.
Got a quarter?
Hello and welcome to City Beat. I'm your host, Tamika Keenan Norman. And if you're just joining us on the show today, we are speaking with Rocky Mount's newest leadership team members. And I want to thank Will Deaton, our Director of Development Services, and Lori Cairo, our Chief Internal Auditor, for joining us on the show earlier. And now with us, we have Elton Daniels, our new Parks and Recreation Director. So welcome to City Beat, Elton.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah, first time on the show. And you started February 18th, right?
That's correct.
Yeah, so you are really, really, really new.
You can
So
say that in
welcome.
about 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, so welcome.
Thank
Tell
you.
us a little bit about yourself, like where you're from, where you went to school, how long you've been in local government.
Okay, well, I am from Leland, North Carolina. I was born in Wilmington, but I grew up in Leland, which is a small town just outside of Wilmington. I grew up involved with a lot of different things as far as extracurricular activities, sports, Boy Scouts. I was in the marching band in high school.
What did you play?
I played the trombone.
Okay, I played clarinet.
Okay, okay. Yeah, my mom was a teacher. She's now retired. She taught special ed. My dad, he worked in a manufacturing facility, and feel like I grew up very humble, had everything that I needed, and they always instilled in me hard work and respect for others. And so after high school, I went off to college. I was fortunate enough to have a full athletic scholarship to Furman University. I was on the football team there. I didn't get as much playing time as I'd like to get, but I enjoyed the experience, learned a lot, have a lot of lifelong friends, and that's pretty much it.
Okay, I see you have your UNCW lapel pin on as well.
Yes, I went to UNCW for graduate school. That's actually where I got my master's in public administration. I spent most of my time at UNCW. However, I ended up finishing up at Chapel Hill, UNC Chapel Hill.
Okay, so how long have you been in local government, and why did you decide to pursue that type of career?
Well, funny you should ask that. When I was in maybe kindergarten, I was 5 years old. My Sunday school teacher actually went around the classroom one day and asked what we wanted to do when we grew up. And a lot of the students would say things like, I want to be a teacher, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a professional athlete, I want to be an entertainer, those type of things. I want to be the president of the United States.
Okay.
And so I always wanted to be in government because I felt like government was a way that a lot of people receive help when they needed it, and I wanted to help people. And so that was my aha moment early on. And then after I graduated from college, I wasn't fortunate enough to get a job directly in the local government. I actually worked for the private sector. I worked for a Fortune 500 company. But I wanted to find a career that had a mission other than making a profit. I wanted to really have a purpose. And so I went back to school. That's when I went back to UNC Wilmington. I moved back home. I moved in with my parents.
Okay.
Slept on their couch. It was definitely odd from being outside and being on my own and making money to moving back in with my parents and taking out student loans. But it was all worth it in the end because actually UNCW is where I met my wife.
Oh, okay. And how long have you all been married?
We've been married going on 5 years. We have an amazing daughter who's now 9 months old, and we actually have another kid on the way. And so I'm excited about that as well.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. So tell me about some of your previous roles, your experience, because I know most recently you were town manager for Selma.
That is correct. I've been in local government management now going on about 10 years. I've been involved with local government for going on 20 years, but actually being employed about 10 years. I started off with the state. I was a magistrate judge in 2008 in my home county in Brunswick County. That was an interesting experience for me. I really learned a lot there. And actually, when I graduated from graduate school, I worked full-time as a magistrate and then full-time as a town administrator. So I would go in at night and do night court and be there from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. I'll go home, take a shower, and go to my full-time job because that was during the time of the recession. And so I just wanted to make sure that I did what my supervisors wanted me to do because at the time, if I had left the state, there was a good chance that the position would have lost because the state was doing a lot of budget cuts there. So it was tough, but I got through it and learned a lot.
Wow, that paid off. You know, you went from your parents' couch to a magistrate judge. So that's a huge 360.
Yes.
But where did you go from there?
So that was my first opportunity as a town administrator / town manager. I worked for 3 small towns, 2 in Brunswick County, 1 in Columbus County, as somewhat a circuit rider manager in which I would spend a few days in each town. That program was sponsored through the UNC School of Government, the League of Municipalities, and the Golden Leaf Foundation. And it was a grant program, and the grant lasted 2 years. And the idea was that it would take recent MPA graduates, place them in small towns that needed help, and that in return, the students, the recent graduates actually would get management experience and hopefully learn the skills that they needed to move on to much larger places. And so the communities that I worked for was able to serve were actually around where I grew up. So that was really good because I was helping people that I knew, people that I grew up with. And from that point on, after the grant was over, I actually found a job in Nash County as a town manager of Sharpsburg. And that was a good experience for me. I continued to learn a lot. Sharpsburg was interesting because it was actually in 3 counties. It was in Nash, Edgecombe, and Wilson. So there was a different dynamic there, but I really enjoyed every moment of it. And from there, I wanted to kind of get into an assistant role because working for a council is great, but it's easier if you can report to one person as opposed to 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, whatever the city or county has. So I was fortunate enough to get an opportunity in Franklin County, a much larger organization, but I was an assistant. So it was a little more stable and I wanted to get experience in both municipal and county, and a lot of great things. I was actually responsible for Parks and Rec when I was in Franklin County, so I got a lot of experience in that as well.
And that's interesting too, because you talk about your background in Parks and Recreation in terms of actually playing football and some other sports too. But tell me a little bit more about your experience in Franklin County with Parks and Recreation and any of your other Parks and Recreation experiences.
So if we start from the beginning, in a small town, you are forced to wear many hats. So there were often times when I was the Parks and Rec department, and I had to go out and mark fields. I was involved with park design. I was involved with getting on the zero-turn lawnmower and cutting the grass.
Wow.
There was a lot of things that I was involved with regard to Parks and Rec. From the administrative side, obviously all that stuff came through me as a town manager. When I was in Franklin County, I was at Parks and Recreation was one of the departments that I was responsible for. So me and the director had a great working relationship. Anything that he needed at the time, I was very hands-on. I would go out, we would do several projects together, working with Special Olympics, working with seniors, doing programming, actually designing parks. When I was in Franklin County, they actually just acquired an old defunct golf course, Bull Creek. And that was actually my project, and the county manager assigned that project to me, and we developed that old golf course into a huge over 300-acre park. And they should be having the ribbon cutting here soon in the next couple of months, so maybe I could scoot down for that. And then from Franklin County, I moved to Selma as town manager. There, again, all of the departments reported to me. However, my Parks and Rec director at the time retired, and because of my background in Parks and Rec and to save funds, I actually became the interim Parks and Rec director until we filled that role. And then from Selma, I ended up here.
All right. So you can relate to all the different aspects of Parks and Recreation pretty much.
I can't say that I've seen it all, but I've seen a lot.
I've seen a lot of it. Now, how did you go from town manager, or why did you decide to go from town manager to Parks and Recreation director here?
Well, it was largely a family decision. When I got my first town manager's job, I was a single person. Whenever you are married, you can't make decisions solely on yourself. It has to be what's best for your family. And I think I told you earlier that my daughter was 9 months old. And so when you combine what it takes to be a town manager, a lot of people don't understand, but you are literally on call 24 hours out the day. And I felt like in order for me to get a better work-life balance, I need to take a step back from that 365 job. I had a lot of responsibility. Whenever there was a fire, I was getting those calls. Whenever there was something going on in the police department, I was getting those calls. Whenever we had a water main break, I was on site with those as well. And so I really love every aspect of my job, but being that my life has changed with regard to my family situation, I felt like I needed to spend more time at home. So with regard to the position here in Rocky Mount, being that I actually lived in Rocky Mount when I was working as a town manager of Sharpsburg, I knew the area very well, still have a lot of friends within this area, within the city. And so whenever you're trying to raise a kid, you want to have a good support system. And it didn't take me too far from my hometown, Leland. My parents are aging, and so I want to be able to get back to them within a reasonable amount of time. And so it just made sense. And out of all the departments that I could work for and actually be responsible for, Parks and Rec, I mean, who doesn't love Parks and Rec? It's the department that reaches the kids, reaches the seniors, reaches the adults. Whenever you see flyers marketing different cities and towns and counties or states, they always feature parks. And so this was a good opportunity, and I'm very fortunate to have it.
Yes, congratulations again. And let me ask you, I know you're relatively new, but I'm sure you've done some assessments. And what aspect of our Parks and Recreation Department do you love, or some things that you've noticed that you're like, wow, this is really unique, this is great?
Well, the first thing that I noticed is that we have amazing staff. And that's not just within my department, that's in all departments. But my department in particular, we have over 9-10 different divisions. And all of them touch the public in a different way. We have the Imperial Center, we have our sports complex, we have our senior programs, a number of different facets that all works with the public. And that's the part that I enjoy the most. it's kind of like that question when someone asks you, what's your favorite song, or what's your, you know,
Right.
I don't have a favorite, but I will say that the sports complex is one of the things that I really want to be involved with, because from a hands-on perspective, because I did play sports growing up. Baseball was actually my favorite sport, and outside of a professional stadium, I think Rocky Mount's sports complex is second to none. When I hear people from different communities talk about Rocky Mount, they talk about the sports complex.
They absolutely do. It's lovely. Have you ever been there during the Down East Viking Football Classic?
I did.
Yeah.
And it's funny because when you go to the Down East Football Classic, you don't really think about where you are. You just, you experience, because there's so much experience. You have good food, good fellowship, but that's Parks and Rec. And now I'm working, I'm a part of that, and I just can't wait to experience those type of things again.
All right. Well, you came during a great time of the year, too, because we're about to embark on Downtown Live and all that good stuff. Lawn chair theater, you know.
That's
you
right.
know.
That's right.
So what are your goals? Maybe it's too early to ask this question, but what do you think some of your immediate goals are, or goals within the first year?
I don't really have goals for the department just yet, because I'm coming in during budget season. So my number one goal is to make sure that we can get some of the things that we need to be successful. But I really just want to assess the department, assess the city, find out where I fit in, because this organization was doing well before I got here. I want to make sure that I can come in and try to enhance it in any way that my supervisors, that the citizens and people, everybody involved sees fit. And so really, I'm a firm believer in seeking to understand before seeking to be understood. And in that sense, I don't want to set goals without really learning how the organization functions as a whole.
All right. Any additional comments? I would like to ask you first, though, what would be your words of advice to students who are pursuing to do some of the things that you have done in local government?
Well, don't be afraid to take chances. And if things don't pan out the way that you believe they should, always try to look for the lesson in that and finding out how you can deal with that adversity. Because in my career, I've definitely had ups and downs, but I always look at it as learning opportunities. And whenever people ask you a cliche question is, what's your greatest weakness? And I always like to look at it as, what's my opportunity to improve? Because I want to constantly improve day in and day out. And so as for anybody that's looking to get into local government, know that every day isn't going to be a picnic. Every day is not going to be sunshine like it is today. However, you have to be able to deal with the good and bad times. Don't get too high, don't get too low. Just focus on your goals long term.
All right. Well, congratulations. Welcome to Rocky Mount. I look forward to working with you as well.
Likewise.
All right. Mr. Elton Daniels, our Director of Parks and Recreation. Thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of City Beat. I'm your host, Tamika Keenan Norman, and we'll see you back here in a few weeks.